Hello there. We're going to do a quick review of the 9 parts of speech. There are individual videos you can watch about each one of them, the main parts of speech, but I'm just going to do a quick review and then you can do some review activities about that. So see how that goes. Right. So we'll start with probably the most important one, which is our nouns. And nouns are, of course, people, places, and things. Okay, for example, right, so here we have thief, which is a person, book, which is a thing, and school, which is a place. Now these are all, of course, common nouns. But we can also have proper nouns. So if I say, oh, there is a thief, his name is John, then that would be a proper noun as his name says. Book, and I say, oh, the book is, let's say, The Hobbit, which is the name of a book. And if I say school, and I go, oh, Harvard University, then these are proper nouns. And then, of course, we can do plurals as well, where thief would become thieves, and where book would become books, and of course school would become schools. Now I'm not going to go too much through everything that can be nouns. There is a detailed video you can watch about proper nouns, common nouns, abstract nouns, uncountable, countable, all those kind of things. But this is the basics of nouns. And I'll just do one example of an abstract noun, for example, information, and that would also be, so it would be abstract, right? And it would also be uncountable, as you cannot have informations. All right, so those are basically your nouns, and so let's erase this, we'll make an example sentence that you can look through. Right, so here we have the chicken and the dog love their owner who lives in the city. So I'll give you a few seconds to think of which one of these are the nouns. Okay. Right, if you found them all, they are chicken, dog, owner, and city are all the nouns there. All right, let's move on to verbs. So verbs, of course, are actions, right? Run. That can also be running. It can be, well, let's say, is running. Can be ran, right? If you have something like jump, can be was, jumping, and of course, jumped. Now, please be careful. Some of these verbs can act like nouns. If I say, I jump on top of that box, then jump is definitely your verb there. But if I say, wow, that was a really good jump, then jump here would actually be that jump would actually be a noun and not a verb. Oh, you can see that. Right. And the last thing I want to talk about is quickly verbs that you might find tricky are our auxiliary verbs, our linking verbs, so those kind of things. Am, is, are, was, were. Okay. Just watch out for those, as they are also verbs. They might be special kind of verbs, but they are very important. Okay, right, let's move on. So we'll move on to adjectives. Now, of course, when you have adjectives, you need to know what nouns are if you want to know what adjectives are, because adjectives, they describe or modify a noun. Okay, let's make that singular, right? So I say the big gorilla, right? Here, gorilla is our noun and big being an adjective because it describes gorilla, it modifies it. But I can also say the gorilla is big. And here it's still the same. Gorilla is being the noun here, and big is our adjective. Right. Now, anything that describes a noun will be an adjective, so I can say there are 2 gorillas. Oh, let's make that 2. And here, 2 is still describing gorillas. I'll also say she loves her pet gorilla. Right, and here you actually have 2 adjectives, her and pet. And this is an example of where an adjective can change, a noun can change into an adjective because pet is describing gorilla and her is also describing whose gorilla it is. So it is describing the gorilla. Right, even things that might look like verbs, you can have she loves her jumping gorilla, and in this case, jumping, again, even though it looks like a verb, is actually acting like an adjective. Therefore, it is an adjective because it is describing gorilla once again. Okay, and you can have, of course, a lot of adjectives describing even just one word. Okay, now where adjectives have one purpose, adverbs have 3. They describe or modify verbs, and they can describe adjectives, and also, missed that one, adverbs, right? So verbs, adjectives, and other adverbs, yes, they can describe themselves. So I'm just going to give you a few instances of each, and then we'll move on to the next part of speech. So if I say, I run quickly, run being our verb, quickly describes how I'm running, and therefore that is an adverb. I can say, I wrote my test yesterday. And yesterday there would be an adverb because it answers the question of when did I write my test? Okay, it is related to the verb. It's not describing me. It's not describing I. It's not describing the test. The test is not yesterday. Okay. And let's see. So here I have I ran, which is my verb, upstairs to write the test. And upstairs tells me where I'm writing the test, and therefore that is also an adverb. We're going to look at another one. Here we have I write tests. So write, okay, tests daily. Okay. Now careful with daily, because here daily is an adverb because it's rather right. But if I say I have daily tests this year, then the daily is actually describing the tests. So here, in this case, daily is an adjective, but in this case, it is an adverb. All right, so then let's quickly look at, so these are all cases where an adverb describes a verb. So let's look at adverbs modifying adjectives. Okay. Right, here we have he is very tall. Tall being our adjective, very describing tall. Okay. Now you have to be careful if I say he is tall and handsome, then both tall and handsome are adjectives, so there is no adverb in here, right? But very is not describing him. You cannot say he is very. It doesn't work on its own. So very is an adverb that describes the adjective there. Let's quickly look at an adverb describing an adverb. Right, so here is the adverb describing an adverb, and write being our verb, right? And then I say neatly. How does he write? He writes neatly. How neatly? Extremely neatly. So extremely describes neatly. Neatly is already an adverb, so then extremely describes neatly. I cannot take neatly out and say he writes extremely. It just doesn't work, right? So that is an adverb describing an adverb, which would mean that both of these are adverbs, right? And there are no adverbs in this sentence here. Okay? Right. Let's move on to pronouns. The basic function of a pronoun is to replace a noun and avoid repetition. So if I say the dog likes Johnny, I can say it also loves him. So it referring to the dog and him referring to, oh, did that one wrong. Okay, him referring to Johnny here, which is then a pronoun, right? If it doesn't replace it, then it is not a pronoun. Okay, I'm not going to go through all the different kinds of pronouns. I have detailed videos about pronouns that you can go look at if you're not sure. All right. So let's then get to conjunctions. Conjunctions, they connect two phrases or words together. The simplest one, of course, being and or, right? You say, I have an Xbox and a PlayStation, right? And here is your conjunction combining that. Then I can also say, I want an Xbox or a PlayStation, and then the or will be your conjunction there, but that's for combining words. So I can say, I can't, let's say, hold on. All right, let's look at this sentence. She usually eats at home because she likes cooking, right? And there is our conjunction. They do not always have to be in the middle of the two phrases joined. They can also be at the beginning. Let's see if you can spot the conjunction in this sentence. When I turned on the TV, the electricity went out. So there's clearly two phrases here. There's a comma, but our conjunction is when. When I turned on the TV, the electricity turned out. Okay. That brings us to prepositions. Prepositions show the, oh, I do that every time, show the relationship between two nouns. So I can say, I run through the tunnel. Okay. I being our pronoun, run being the verb, the tunnel there being our object there, and through is telling me how the noun of I and the tunnel relate to each other, right? So you'd say, I sit. Right, so here we have, I threw the ball into the box. So where here, through connects I to the tunnel, here it is, I threw the ball into the box is our preposition as well. Right, they can be a little tricky. They're not always about location, but if you want to watch a detailed video about that, you can go and find that. All right. That brings us to number 8, which is the easiest part of speech because there's only 3 in this category, and there will always only be 3, and that is a, an, and the. Okay, so I say, a man came by tonight, right? That's an article. An octopus bit my leg, right? And then you continue, the octopus swam away, right? So there are 3 uses of our articles, and of course you usually use the and one if there is a vowel sound. And not vowel spelling, vowel sound. I would say an hour, even though it starts with an H, because hour, we didn't say hour, we said hour, but again, you can watch that more detailed. All right, and then we get to our last one. Right, last one, and also quite easy, interjections, usually on their own, usually with a question mark or something. I'll say, wow, that's amazing, right? And there's our interjection. It usually shows emotion. It can even say, hi, nice to see you. Okay. And there, hi would also be an interjection. But words that can usually, you can use other words and they can be interjections. So if I say like what, which would usually be a pronoun, if I say what, you broke it, then what becomes an interjection, right? Even you, that's usually a pronoun. If I say like, you, why are you here? Okay, so that's also an interjection because it's showing emotion, it's interrupting, and of course there are interjections specific to specific languages, and they can have negative or positive connotations, right? So, for example, wow, that's positive one, whereas in this what would be a negative one, and that should be a question mark, by the way. All right, so that's just a quick about 15-minute review of the 9 parts of speech. There are 9 main parts of speech. There are some more detailed videos to watch if you want, but there is a nice review quiz of this that you can do. All right.